Hello, Adam.
Hello.
Well, I was on Twitter. I think it was just earlier this week. I think it was earlier this week or it was last week. I can't remember. And I came across, I'm not sure how I came across your tweet, but you were talking about having your attempt at publishing some fiction for the Traveler universe and with the hopes of getting picked up to be able to use that IP for, I guess, was it a novel or a novella?
Yeah, it's a novella.
So I guess the question is, what exactly, so what brought you to the point to, I guess, writing this for, I guess you're kind of, is a speculation. You weren't sure whether you're going to get somebody to do this or not. So what brought you to this point?
Well, can we ramble?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go for it.
So again, yeah. So I'm a writer. I live in suburban Chicago, and I'm the author of a novel called The Surge, an Iraq war novel called The Surge. It was published in 2019 from Engine Books, which is a literary press based in Indianapolis. I've got a Master's of Fine Arts degree from Northwestern University. I'm also an Army combat veteran and a former newspaper reporter. So a few months after The Surge was published, I was talking with my agent, and I told him about this idea I had for a Star Wars novella, a Star Wars story, and I was fired up about it. It was going to take place like 70 years before the events of like Episode 1. And it was going to have real fun stuff like a lone wolf, Mandalorian Jedi, and like a deep dive into different kinds of lightsaber combat. You'd find out the origins of Count Dooku's curved lightsaber and all this stuff, set in the criminal underworld of Coruscant, the planet Coruscant. And I explain all this, and there's this long pause on the other end of the phone, and you remember the scene in Fellowship of the Ring where the character Boromir, he goes, one does not simply walk into Mordor, right? And it was kind of like that. My agent's reaction was kind of like that. He was like, one does not simply walk into Disney and pitch a Star Wars product. He was like, forget about it. Don't do it. This is not going to happen. He said, you're going to get paid very little, even if they do like it. But you're not going to make any money, and they're going to own the rights, and you're not going to get any cut of the subsidiary deals, like the toys, the Halloween costumes, the action figures, stuff where the real money comes in. He's like, don't do it. He's like, write a memoir. How about some YA? Write a young adult novel. I can sell that, but don't do this tie-in fiction. Forget about it. So that was a few years ago, and then I guess you have to flash forward to the early stages of the pandemic we're still dealing with, and everyone was on lockdown, and you couldn't leave your house, and it was impossible for me to get any writing done. I just couldn't. And I know a lot of other writers probably felt the same way. And I was rummaging around in my basement, and I dug up some stuff from when I was a kid, and it was like my old role-playing games that I hadn't touched or played in like 30 years. Yeah. I mean, it was, I'd gotten rid of so much, but I still had, like a first edition, AD&D Player's Handbook and the Monster Manual. And I had a few other like really old classics like Gamma World. Have you ever heard of Gamma World?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, and I was like, oh man, I was like, and then I was like, this just takes me back. And so I found out about Roll20 and being able to play online. I was like, I'm going to start getting into gaming again. Why not? So yeah, I really liked what, one of the games as a kid was Traveler. I had the little black books, back from the early 80s. And but I could never play those games because I was the only guy who had them, and I was just a teenager, and I really wasn't ready to run like a campaign, an open world sandbox campaign that Traveler
Right.
at that time was all about. But I liked what Mongoose has done with the game. So I started rolling up Traveler characters, getting ready to play Traveler, and I was just bored out of my mind. Like I said, I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. And I rolled up like maybe like close to 100 characters. And then I sorted through them and picked out my favorites from the.
So this is 100 that did you generate them via the computer, or did you actually get out the book, roll the dice?
I had the book, and I had the core rule books, and but actually for a lot of them I use this. There's a website. It's called Munson Traveler Character Generator.
Yeah,
and you can just blaze them up fast. And so I had like 5 or 6 characters, and I got to thinking, well, what do they like? What motivates them? How would they interact together? What do they want? And then all of a sudden I just started writing again after, months and months of not being able to put words on the page. And I didn't totally know where I was going, but I just rolled with it and kept writing. And, eventually I, wrapped up this past fall with a 39,000 word novella with ideas for about 2 more books in a series. And I just kept it in the Traveler universe. And I kind of blended a few, version items from the classic edition and then T5 and what Mongoose has done. I kind of put them together and scrambled it up to I think to try to create an original Traveler experience for the reader. And I also, I took real great care, and this was a challenge, to tailor it for a mainstream audience, so that if a sci-fi reader had never even heard of the Traveler role-playing game, they could still sit with this book and hopefully enjoy the heck out of it and want to read more.
So what aspects did you put in there that I guess would have tagged it to the IP? Because really, it doesn't appear to me that there's a lot that, unless you name like certain systems or certain worlds, that there's really anything inherent in Traveler that, like compared to Star Wars, that would make it a recognizable IP if you're just writing generically.
Well, you still have things like I did name planets, lots of them. The action mostly takes place in an area called the Foreven sector, which I know is kind of an open area for people to do with what you want. So most of the action takes place there, and some planet names I made up, some based on, to get into the background of the characters, were actually from, like the Traveler map and various areas. A lot of the equipment, some of the equipment is very specific to Traveler, or the types of starships, a free trader. If you're going to use the word, free trader, all of a sudden you have now dipped into that material. If you're going to use Aslans or Vargers and some of these other alien races, now you can't really tell a Traveler story without getting some of the favorites in there. At least I didn't want to in this one. So that's where all of a sudden this is definitely licensed material that to publish. You would need permission to do that. So what I did when I finished the novels, I've submitted it to the 2 license holders.
So how's that work? So who you say 2? So you have to get approval from 2 different people to get this to work?
Well, hopefully either Far Future Enterprises or Mongoose, who publish Traveler right now, would want to publish it, would basically want to acquire the product.
So it's an either or, not both, right? Have to agree to it. So it's either one or the other.
I don't quite know how that would work. I know Mark Miller, who created Traveler and who owns and operates Far Future Enterprises. he could, respond to the query that I sent him and say, I'd like to publish it. They've published traveler fiction before. Or the folks over at Mongoose who have a license from Mark to publish traveler products. They've published fiction before, and hopefully one of the two likes the story and wants to acquire it.
So you could you have done this through, if you chose to, not to say it would make sense business wise, but could you have published this through DriveThru RPG, or does that type of content does not like fall within their whatever that is, that creator
open gaming license?
Well, it's not an open gaming license, but you can, certain companies, if you publish through them through DriveThru, as long as you don't use over a certain percentage of their content, you can do that and they get a cut.
Yeah, that's an option, but that's usually, as far as I understand it, and I could be wrong, for like game supplements or whatnot. And fiction is kind of in its own different area. And you can, and this is true of any, tie-in fiction or fan fiction or any intellectual property kind of narrative work, is you're free to write that and put it on your website. You can do as long, but if you're trying to sell it though,
right,
then you have to get permission from the license holder.
And so then you just did both that could do that, to say, okay. So I was kind of wondering, at first I was wondering like why, it takes a pretty large leap of faith to just write something on speculation, but it was a novella was one thing. So it's not like you committed to, 3 novels, each of, 700 pages length. It was simply, I think, a more doable size. And also it was a exercise to kind of, I think, is a creative exercise for you as well, because the juices were flowing. You didn't want to stop it, just keep it going.
Yeah, it was leap of faith is a pretty good word. You normally when a publisher wants to publish like a piece of tie-in fiction or whatnot, usually what happens is they'll approach the license holder and ask for a permission.
Yeah.
And then if they get the permit, now usually the license holder is going to want some cash or a piece of the action. And then what happens is, if the publisher gets permission, they will then they'll start approaching authors that they know of or that they have an idea who would be good for this product or project. And then once that's agreed upon, and then it's going to go back and forth between the license holder and the publisher, because the license holder, whoever has the IP, wants to make sure that their products being represented in the manner in which they intended it to. But the editor wants, and the writer, they're going to want narrative editorial control over the actual storytelling aspect of it. So this is a thing that not a lot of mainstream publishers are really interested in getting into. Before I submitted it to both Mongoose and Far Future Enterprises, before I submitted my story, I was looking around for other mainstream publishers who might be interested in it, like Tor and whatnot, and nobody's really accepting tie-in fiction at the moment. And I understand why, because like I had said, there's a lot that goes into it. There's rights, there's lawyers, there's funds, there's finding the right author to do this. And as you said, there's no real guarantee that this is even going to make money, if it's going to earn out. So I understand why a lot of publishers don't necessarily deal with it under normal circumstances, unless it's like their own house.
But you could, if you chose to, you could just do find and replace in Microsoft Word, and all of a sudden it's no longer a traveler novel.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it works good as traveler. I mean, honestly, like I said, I tailored the story to a mainstream audience. So the bones of the story are there. It's just simply the universe. The
Yeah.
setting is Traveler. So yeah, I could, say it just doesn't work out and I can't find anyone or get permission to go forward with it as a Traveler story, as hopefully a series, the start of at least a 3-book series. Yeah, I will probably kind of take a step back and then go back through the manuscript and remove all the Traveler stuff. And then I would most likely expand it from say 39,000 words to, I don't know what the sweet spot is off the top of my head for sci-fi. I think it's like around like 100,000 words, 110,000 words. And I would do that. I would expand it then, and then I would try to resubmit it as a piece of original material. At least that's my game plan.
So if you were to do that, is I guess the question then, would you feel that I mean, because right now the underlying structure is existing. There's an existing body that's underlying this whole thing of work, right? So you're kind of resting on, the work of Mark Miller and many others. I guess, would you feel the need, if you were to go further, to say, okay, now I feel that you'd feel burdened to like create an entire universe, or would you just still kind of fall within that same structure, but it just this is not Aslan, or this is not
Right.
Vagar, this is not, and go that route?
Now, if I can't sell it as Traveler, I'm just going to have, like I said, I'm going to have to reload and just create an entirely new framework, new universe. So it would be totally original. That's the only way it would work. At least at least
For your
I
head.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would have to completely, it would just no longer be a Traveler story. People would probably look at it and find elements of Traveler in it, but you can do that with so much. I mean, Traveler itself is gleaned from so many like old school sci-fi stories that you can find little bit, and even contemporary stuff. You can see the influence from Traveler in it. Look at the Expanse novels. You've got vac suit, Gauss guns. You've got a lot of stuff in there that is in both different universes. So I mean, if the Traveler material has to be removed because it just, the product is not what any of the IP holders are interested in, that's cool. But I mean, you can have similar storylines. Like there's a series, Rachel Bach, I believe, is the author. It's the Paradox trilogy, and a fantastic sci-fi space opera. And it's a fairly, some of the scenarios are fairly similar to what you would find in a Traveler type of story. So I don't know if it would be too much of a problem to do it, but I happen to just think, well, Traveler is very cool. And I know there's fans of the game in the US and the UK. Every time I go on like a forum or something, or talk to people who play, people are like, yeah, man, why isn't there any Traveler fiction out there? So that's another reason why I kind of went forward as an IP project, because I knew there's a kind of a yearning for this kind of thing. At least I hope so.
Yeah, because there's a baked in audience, right? I mean, obviously it's an audience that you could lose if you don't do it right, but you're right. I think that's also why you would choose to do an IP, because you know that you're gaining
exactly
that.
Yeah, there's a ready-made readership right there. Like I said, I mean, I took great pains to make this also with appeal to mainstream sci-fi readers. And if, I mean, in a perfect world, the book could get published and people who never heard of Traveler would read it and then get drawn into the game, and now the game has new fans, and just the world expands sort of naturally.
Right. And I guess that leads into and I know that fiction and gaming materials, not like modules, aren't the same. I mean, like they're completely different things. Because obviously,
Right.
whatever you've created, it's a railroad for those characters that you did. But I guess the question: have you also thought backwards? Like, hey, as you're writing a novel, is this also something you're thinking of as like you could create and publish like setting material or adventures? Has that been a thought too?
Oh, based on like a spin-off kind of thing, based on like a module, like an adventure based off
Yeah.
of the book. I guess you could. I mean, I'm getting way ahead of myself, I guess to be doing that. But I mean, well, the Mongoose Corporation, for example, if you look at any of their traveler products, I mean, they do a great job with that. I mean, that's a thing. If again, knock wood, if they like it, they could print it as a straight book, or they could really go gangbusters. You could put character sheets in the back with
Right.
illustrations. You could have starship deck plans of the ships that these guys are interacting with. I mean,
You can do the world
absolutely.
write-ups. You can do the world write-ups that you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things you could do with that. But it's got to happen first.
Right.
As the writer, I try not to get like into that and that far ahead. I mean, you have ideas. I think every writer who envisions, their book being made into a movie starts to think of, well, who would play my main character? What actor? Can we get Brad Pitt? I mean, yeah. I'm sure, but really, I think it's best to I just try to stick with the story and the words on the page.
Okay, that makes sense. I just thought, like, really, because you are, even though you may not say this is going to be the adventures, what these people have done, there's definitely, you've created NPCs, organizations, whatever.
Totally new aliens.
Yeah. So you've created an opportunity as you could be creating a source book as you go too.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way until just now. Now, see, now you've got my head going, and I'm like,
sorry.
Yes, we can. The little lead figurines that you paint. Yes. It'll be a whole section in the hobby shop. I mean, at this rate.
Yeah, because I mean, and I don't know, and everybody's process is different. But I mean, but maybe growing, by working outward in different directions, maybe that will help you even overall with the direction of whatever future stories there are.
Yeah, because I mean, technically, there's 2 more books to write based off of this this one novella. There's 2 more that I know what's going to happen, and I've already started writing the second one. But yeah, we'll see. It was a big, it was a big risk, kind of shopping the story without having been asked or hired to do IP. That usually doesn't happen. Like I said, usually this is an established author with a track record of sales,
right?
Who can make deadlines, who's willing and capable of working within an established narrative scaffolding, a set fixed universe. But I was a newspaper reporter for a long time, so I'm pretty able to work within a certain framework, and I would get an assignment from an editor, and he's like, "You're going out, you're going to write this story, you're going to talk to these people, and this is what you're going to do, what it's going to look like, and this is the amount of space that you have to tell it in, and here's the time for limit before it's due." So I already kind of had that in my background a little bit, so I wasn't like really, I guess I wasn't apprehensive about just diving into IP sort of projects.
Right.
And as you can tell, I really am not I'm kind of ignoring the rules a little bit, from ignoring my agent's advice, and just doing it anyways, because I believed in it. It's
well, you had to do it. The muse dictated.
Exactly. I was called.
Yeah.
I had no choice.
It's a purity of vision. I understand. I will not rest until this is done. I really don't care what anybody else says.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like that. I don't know if that's a good quality or not. I'm definitely stubborn, but I mean, and this is true for all writers. This is such a tough racket, being a published author. I mean, you spend years of your life trying to write a book, and there's no guarantee that you're even going to find an agent who thinks they can try to sell it. And even if you do find an agent, which can take years, there's no guarantee the agent is going to actually sell the book to a publisher, who then is in turn going to publish it,
right,
and actually turn a profit off of it. It's a real crapshoot. So kind of just being a little pig-headed at times, and relying on just faith in yourself and belief that your story is going to have value to someone that's going to connect with them. That's kind of what I think, no matter what you're writing, keeps you going in this business. And that's the kind of frequency I think I'm operating on.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, there is no success, I don't think, in life by quote unquote playing it safe.
Not always, no.
Very rarely. You have to take risks.
Yeah, I remember my father, before he passed away, he was very angry. Going back some years, and he had said to me, he was very sick, and he was saying, he said, Adam, I did everything right. I did everything I was supposed to do, and it's just not it didn't work out. And I got to thinking, if not long after that, I was like, but my old man never really took risks either. Yeah. I mean, he didn't really get the things he wanted because he always played it safe. He always had a reason why he could not do that. And and this is true of anything that I write. I'm at the stage in my life, and when I guess I'm more afraid of not trying than actually trying and failing, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah. You don't want to be your old man.
Yeah, and
going to your grave with regrets.
Writing something I always wanted to do when I was a kid, and my parents always said, "Well, you can't do that. That's not a real job. You can't be a writer. That's crazy. Don't do it. No, you need to study like computer engineering or something." That was the thing. And so when I stumbled into journalism and being a newspaper reporter, because I could still write and get paid for it, and it was a real job.
So how old were you when this happened?
When what?
You became a journalist.
Oh, that was in the mid 90s, late 90s.
So how does one accidentally become a journalist?
Well, so I enlisted in the Army after high school, and I was 17 years old, and this was in 1988. So I'm dating myself here.
Yeah.
So in 1980, yeah. So I was in the military in the U.S. Army for over 8.5 years, and then I finally got out and went to college on the GI Bill, and I had actually thought about. We're totally rambling now. You know that, right?
That's what we're doing. Yeah, it's on the 10. It's okay.
I didn't quite know what I was gonna do for sure, but I studied journalism is what I did, and just I think I had an aptitude for it and an interest in it, and so that's what I majored in, and that's what I went on to work in the newspaper profession after college. And I did that for a few years, and then, well, we've been at war for like the last 20 years. So it
hasn't ended.
Yeah, no, it was, it was going on. This was around mid 2000, like 2006. And I said, you know what, I'm going to reenlist. And I had tried to go overseas as a journalist, as a reporter, be embedded. But that never really materialized. None of the papers I worked for had enough money to send me.
Right.
It's expensive, but so far I decided to reenlist, and I reenlisted for an additional 3 years. So that's my journalism story.
So do you think I mean, obviously, in the beginning, I'm sure it's the parents saying, this makes no sense, don't do it. But I mean, obviously probably the experiences you had in the Army, your view of life and risk probably changed at that point, didn't it? I mean, do you think that's what did you come out as a different person?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody can go through that kind of, experience and not, evolve or develop in some way.
Because what happens if you're a journalist and it doesn't work out? What do? You just do something else, right?
You just keep finding a newspaper or a news organization.
Are you just quit being a journalist, go do something else? I mean, there's no, you think of what exactly is the worst thing that could happen?
We're going to PR a lot from journalism.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big transition. A lot of it's because it's better hours and better money. And it's similar type of work. So, or you go into, working for like a trade publication.
Oh yeah.
A company's in-house magazine that they have, a university press. Yeah, there's a lot of like feeder jobs that you can do with a journalism degree and have a decent living.
Yeah, and I imagine that takes a certain amount of personality, because if you don't have a desire or passion for something and have to crank something out day after day, I guess you can just become a machine and just crank out words.
You try not to, I guess, and I guess that's true of any. I mean, I'm sure. A lot of writers authors who write series have the same. I can't imagine what George R.R. Martin's going through, having to write all these books, and it just, how do you, was it Elmore Leonard said, this gets harder the more it doesn't get easier. It gets harder, coming up with new material. But, you steering this back to like role-playing games and whatnot. I mean, that's something that's always been with me, for a long time. I started playing D&D with the old Blue Book.
Oh yeah,
like back. You remember talking about this old Blue Book, man? I was probably like 11 or 12, and me and my friends loved it. And it wasn't long, man. I was blowing my allowance at the hobby shop, buying modules, buying the little figurines, man. I ruined my eyesight sitting there painting these things, man. In my room at night, and it wasn't long before I was probably around 14, 15, I started going to local gaming cons, and I would sign up and play in these like one-shot tournaments. And in one of the tournaments, I was probably around like 15. I won like first prize for like best role playing or something. And afterward, one of the judges, he calls me over and he's like, "Hey, do you want to join this gaming group that's been going on for like 10 years?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I don't think you could get away with this now. I mean, these guys were like these old hippies, okay? And they played at the Dungeon Master's house. It was like a trailer in rural Indiana, and they would be up all night. They met every Saturday, and it was wild because I'm in here. I'm just like 15-year-old kid with these like grown-ups.
Yeah.
And they've been playing forever. And they've got, level 25, fighter clerics and whatnot. And then I've got this level 1 guy, hanging out in this party. And the monsters, I mean, would have no chance against them. I would be killed instantly. Sometimes they would get mad because they're like, "We're always having to bring you back to life, man." And it got to the point where like, if we would get in combat, if there would be a monster, my character would have to hide immediately. I would like run to the back of the party and try to hide and wait until it was either all done or the monster was like laying on its side, and maybe my character would shoot an arrow long range, but not get anywhere near the action, because one hit from like a fireball or something would just waste my guy. But those guys, like I said, they were a lot of older guys, and then some of them like invited me to play in other campaigns, and that's what really like introduced me to other games. Like Twilight 2000, for example. This guy was a Vietnam vet, and he ran this, absolutely amazing Twilight 2000 adventure. There was like 10 of us, and all different kinds of people. And he had a huge like board map and everything, and we all had little characters and what figurines, and he had model vehicles and whatnot, and it was just out of this world. So yeah, you talk about having a passion for things and things that interests that stick with you for a while. I mean, I definitely can relate to that. Definitely in terms of not only just playing role-playing games, gaming, but being willing to take a stab at writing role-playing game fiction. Which, like we were talking about, a little earlier, I mean, you've got a ready-made fan base. I'm almost surprised there's not more of it out there by some of the gaming companies.
Yeah, I'm trying to think too, because I'm thinking of other properties like Call of Cthulhu or Cthulhu or however you pronounce it.
Right.
That's another one that I would think would be maybe they do put out fiction, but like I don't know why they don't have lines of fiction.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's the what was it, Wizards of the Coast? I mean, there was the Dragonlance Dungeons and Dragons series. I think it was like 100 books by as part of that. And Traveler's done stuff. Mark Miller did Agent of Imperium. He did his own novel, which was like a Dragon Award finalist. And was it Martin Doherty, one of the writers and developers of the game Traveler, has a couple of short fiction pieces. There was a dude in the I want to say the early 90s, maybe late 80s, named Jefferson Swikaffer, and he did like a series of like Traveler novels. He called it like Tales of the Concordat, and I believe he had permission from Mark Miller to run with that. And Simon and Schuster ran those. It was a while back.
Yeah, I've never read any of the Traveler novels, and I don't know why I should be. Mark did a wonderful job with the game. But I think when I just see one novel put out, or maybe later on another one, I don't know. I guess I wasn't sure how interesting his fiction would be. I mean, I love his game mechanics,
right?
But it's hard for me to say and he could be a wonderful novelist. I don't know, but it just
personally enjoyed Agent of the Imperium. I personally enjoyed Agent of the Imperium. I did, and some of the other stuff I've read. Mongoose also has published short stories set in their kind of slice of the Traveler universe. So I mean, it's out there, but it's hard to find, and it's not a widespread thing. And I have no answer for it.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, there just must not be that. There must not be that much money in it for them. Must be the reason why. The only reason I could think of.
I don't know. I mean, it could be how it's these things. How do you market it? What's it like? And, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different ways or reasons for why that might be.
Yeah, and I think too is who knows, maybe they just never came across the right formula. Maybe it's a series of 10 novellas that
maybe this is it right here.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe I'm the guy.
Yeah,
the one they've been waiting for.
It's like
a lot. You can go on like talking about Traveler. You can go on like the Mongoose Traveler forums or was it Citizens of the Imperium? It's a old school Traveler forum, and you can see like fiction. There's a lot of Traveler fiction people posted on there, and I read a lot of that, and a lot of it was actually really entertaining. A lot of people who write tie-in fiction or fan fiction or role-playing game fiction, they have no intention of getting it, publishing it, or publishing it mainstream professionally, I guess. So that's awesome. A lot of the Traveler fiction that I have read that people have fan generated, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's a first draft. Like if the writer just rewrote it maybe 20 more times, it would be a very, very different story.
And probably the length isn't there either. I would imagine it's probably somebody taking a weekend, cranking something out, and then just moving on to life.
Some of these guys have been working on these stories, short, almost some of them are novella length, for a long time. Yeah, they have, and they've done a fantastic job with it too. But that's one of the big challenges of being a writer is not the writing the story, it's the revising the story, it's the editing the story, it's the patience to actually do that.
Yeah, so that I
started what eats a lot of people up. Yeah,
maybe also, of course, you're not saying this, but this is just my brain going. But it's like maybe your other thing would be is be an editor and bring those people's works to life. Say, you know what, let's polish this up. I know an editor, and
there wasn't go ahead. Yeah, there was an attempt to do that. I believe an editorial consulting company at one point partnered with Far Future Enterprises to start producing traveler fiction and publishing it and getting it, polished and ready to go in good shape for readers. And then I saw this announcement that this partnership was formed, and then it just went away. And I don't really know if there was a falling out or just what happened. I have no idea. Someone out there in traveler world knows the answer to that, but I don't.
Yeah, right. And it could be for any number of reasons. And I think it also seems kind of perplexing sometimes with the number of way things are licensed. I'm sure this didn't have anything to do with it, but it is just kind of interesting how many different ways Traveler has been licensed over the years. And I think somebody went through that through GURPS, through, Far Future, to to just like it is kind of strange. I'm sure that the whatever copyrights were very clearly drawn, and there was no. But I just know sometimes things can get kind of weird.
Yeah, and all these like questions we don't have answers to. I'm positive right now someone's going to see this and go, "This guy's an idiot." It's clear as day. Everybody knows that what happened was this. And if you had any concept of what you were talking about, it probably has the answers and knows all of this. And I would love to talk to that person and listen to that guy. Get that person on your podcast.
Yes.
and fill in the blanks, man.
Who was in? I want the guy who was in the room when it happened.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is a whole thing, man. Writing, role-playing game fiction is not just science fiction. This is new territory for me. And like I said, I don't know if it's brave or stupid to just kind of wade into it the way I did, but I did, and I'm enjoying it, and I just want to see where the ride goes.
Okay, well, because I just I have another thought. Okay, you ready? All right. Have you heard Free League Publishing?
No.
So they publish a game called Coriolis, which is if you imagine Traveler, but you combine it with Arabian Nights, and you kind of combine it with The Expanse. So it's and maybe a little bit. So there's also maybe what's that horror Event Horizon.
Yeah.
So you kind of shake that all together. And so it's a very Arabian thing, but they also had the rights to publish the Alien game, role-playing game, which is wildly successful. So you say, okay, they're publishing the Alien game, but this is something new that they're doing, is they are publishing 3 novels in the Alien game universe.
Exactly. Yes. That's very cool.
So it's using their IP in addition to that, but you know what? They've got Coriolis. It's a little different, but I mean, there might be other IPs that are similar that are now saying, what this shows is they're saying we want to go into fiction. Now they may, and they're both big enough and maybe small enough to be interested and likewise with doing other things with their properties.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure they have writers lined up.
I don't know.
Ready to go. Who knows? No, that's I'm glad you mentioned that, man. I'm gonna go surf the internet.
Yes, because they're out of Sweden.
Okay.
And they don't mess around. So their stuff is top notch. So But I'm just saying is their stuff is fairly popular, has a fan base. I think travel would be ideal in a lot of ways, but I'm just saying is it's apparent that Free League is saying we're going to get into fiction as well.
Right.
And I don't
Right.
know, I don't know who else, like I doubt like Steve Jackson Games does. Of course, I don't know if they have any settings.
A lot of them have done it and then they discontinue it, or they've done it before and then they just haven't in a long time. And like I said, I don't have the answers to it.
Yeah, and it's not like the old days. I'm trying to think I don't know.
Well, the old days, when like the Dungeons and Dragons novels were coming out, you didn't have ebooks were not as prevalent, so the game company could print a lot of these stuff. They could print books, novels, fiction novels in-house with probably little overhead.
Yes.
But now in the terms, in the time of ebooks, you could just do role-playing game fiction as an ebook. So the overhead is like next to nothing. And you still are going to have product that your fans are going to be interested in. And depending on how that's marketed, where do you go with your outreach and your promotional strategies, you could start drawing in those mainstream readers. Like I said, yeah, I don't know why more don't try to delve into that area, because it seems like an avenue that would, not only possibly generate some revenue, but it would be of interest to your the people who play your game, and attract new. I hate to use the word consumers, but that's from a business standpoint, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, this is all new to me, and I've been self-educating myself over the last year or so, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, I think one of the reasons why people have difficulty going in a lot of these directions is that, there's a lot of rejection that comes into doing what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're going to be an author, and if you're going to try to be a professional, you're going to have to deal with a lot of disappointment and rejection, and it's a lot of people don't. There's a lot of people have limits. I guess everybody has your limit. And that's a very real and painful reality of this business. Books die on sub. People get agents and they still cannot sell their books, or their book goes out and it doesn't perform well, and they don't get another offer. And so it's an extremely cruel aspect of publishing, not only just in general, but especially nowadays. It's a tough racket.
Yeah, and I also wonder too. I know I don't read novels or even nonfiction like I used to. I used to read a lot, but my consumption has gone down. I'm assuming with the, maybe I'm making a wrong connection, but the death of like the Barnes and Nobles, I'm wondering if just reading in general has been plummeting, but maybe not.
I don't know about that. I mean, every couple of months, I see something out of Publishers Weekly talking about bookstore sales, book profits. People are still reading.
It's just going to the ebooks, and that Amazon's selling them rather than Barnes and Noble.
Well, I mean, small booksellers every now and then make a rally and report decent profits. I think it just kind of goes up and down over time. And then what's old becomes new again, and so the industry changes and the nature of the industry changes, but people are still reading, and people still want to read books, and the types of books they want to read go in and out of popularity. The lengths. That's why I wrote this book as a novella, and even my first novel, The Surge, it's not a really super thick book, and because I think some people like reading a big thick book. Other people like the short form, and there's a place for both on the shelf, so to speak.
Yeah, because it's interesting because I remember back in the day, in the 70s, stuff written in the 60s and 70s, which I read a lot of. Dune was a huge book, but most of them were like the Conan or the Michael Moorcock books.
Yeah,
where
I remember
like
Conan.
they're only like 200 like 170 pages. I mean, there was no, and I think now the expectation is, if it's not like 600 or 700 pages, it's not worth it, and people will ignore it.
Contemporary fiction, yeah, their size does matter. Contemporary fiction right now, very difficult to get interest in anything that's not around 90,000 words. I think that's the magic number for contemporary fiction right now. I think sci-fi is I think the sweet spot's like around 120,000 words. But the readers of different genres, they kind of expect different things. Like a sci-fi book can be really thick and big because the readers expect that kind of world building. Fantasy, same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, they are for the world building, and so they have a tendency to be a little more patient with you, and they want a lot of words. They want to really discover and immerse themselves in this world that's being created and presented for them. Well, someone who likes a thriller. Okay, they want the pages to move, short chapters. So there is a bit of formulaic nature to some things, and then there's just authors who are simply brilliant and just break all the rules and produce a book that blows everyone away. It's completely original.
Yeah,
to a point.
Yes, and you wonder how much of those get ignored because they were brilliant. They just never break through because they failed to meet the format.
Look, man, the best, the greatest novel ever written, no one's ever read because it's never been published. Because an agent and an editor at some publishing house could not figure out how to make money off of it, and that is reality. Anybody who says otherwise is just simply delusional and lying to you. They couldn't figure out how to sell it because it was unlike anything else. And that sucks because there's probably a really, really good book out there,
Yeah.
That and an artist who just can't get a break. In fact, I'm positive there are thousands of them.
Well, and you think too, I guess if you just the corollary, which isn't a good corollary, but like movies, it's like occasionally, at least if we'll say with the different kinds of genres or maybe the superhero genre, people pick a certain pattern, and then when all of a sudden somebody does something a little different, all of a sudden it breaks, like say Deadpool. And all of a sudden everybody loses their mind because the executives expect a certain pattern. All movies have to be dark. They always have to be this. They always have to be that. And all of a sudden they can't just see that people aren't wanting necessarily the same thing all the time. Just because, the Christopher Nolan Batman is a certain way, we just got to keep getting darker and darker. It's not necessarily what people want. They may be what they want, but I think it's probably the same thing with books. It's the formula.
Publishers and Hollywood and TV, film and TV people and publishing people, I think, could all agree that really nobody knows what they want. They know it when they see it, but really they don't know what they want.
They just
no one knows what's going to sell.
Well, because
they think you've got a slam dunk and it doesn't.
Well, they've got a risk, and then what they're wanting to do is mitigating risk. And so if they know that, Flintstones is a huge movie, let's just do Flintstones 2. It'll be huge too, just because it's number 2.
Who knows? I have no idea.
Yeah, I can remember they were saying something about Mission Impossible 4. I can't remember. Some executive said, they know that they already guaranteed X number of people watching just because it's the fourth one in the series.
Like we were saying earlier in the show, it's like with role-playing game fiction. There's a ready-made fan base, and you can probably, the people who crunch the numbers probably have an idea of what that market's going to be, especially probably for film or TV. Novels, the people in the publishing industry, God bless them. As I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how they stay above water. I mean, we authors, writers, we like to complain about the publishing industry. Um, just as sometimes it's almost an adversarial kind of relationship, but the people who work in publishing at any level, I mean, are really talk about working with their backs against the wall sometime, and forced to deal with things that the authors and the general public just have no idea what kind of pressure they're under. So I mean, I gotta tip my hat to them.
And there is a lot of speculation. If you ever, the publishing I've done just for my own small projects, but I use Kickstarter to determine what I'm going to order.
Yeah.
But a publisher's like, okay, to make this worthwhile, this novel, we got to print, let's say, 10,000 copies. I don't know what the number is. That's a pretty huge investment. And they already know, I think when they print, even if it's a good novel, probably a large portion of those is still going to get scrapped out at the end,
Yeah, most, I don't know. I don't know what the ratio is of how many books actually earn or, sell out their entire print run, at least first printing or whatnot. That's why, like, pre-orders are so important to writers, to authors.
Yeah.
It's the pre-order, pre-sales that really can like make or break a book's success when it's debuted.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the Kickstarter portion of it where you already are guaranteed. And that's where you can start paying for your print run. And though you still may have risk, you're mitigating risk, because all it really is a means of mitigating risk.
Yeah, I see comic guys doing it all the time. I've seen role-playing guys doing it all the time, quite often. And with the print on demand, I mean, print on demand format kind of can alleviate some of the I guess supply issues that we're talking about.
Yes, it can.
Yeah.
So what you're giving up generally, the print on demand, yes, the print on demand is a very economical way of doing things. It's just that the quality is not as good if you're wanting to do a higher quality production.
Right.
But a lot of the print on demand stuff is pretty stinking good.
Yeah, absolutely. My shelf has got many pre-OD copies.
Yeah.
From small presses.
Yeah. So I think, and I think smaller, I think people who do, we'll just say like zines and more boutique, I'll call it boutique.
Oh, right. Yeah.
People kind of expect or want more, or can expect more of we'll say a premium. They're willing to, like, if you're printing on nice paper and things like that, that's the selling point. But to selling to a mass audience, that's not going to work.
No, but you go into it knowing it's a niche publication, right?
Yes.
I mean, you got that. I mean, so, but that helps you, structure the whole project, though.
Oh yeah, it does.
I would imagine it helps.
It can. Yeah, I'm just trying to think, man, because like I was just thinking, of course you don't have the rights to it, but with Patreon, and what's the other ones? The Substack. I think there's a lot of vehicles that a writer could be generating revenue.
Oh yeah, I mean, self-published authors, some of them do very, very well, doing it all on their own, and hats off to them too, because that is very difficult to earn out as a self-published.
They probably have to be a machine and just crank out a lot of works, right?
Well, some publish more frequently than others, but it's mainly the promotion aspect of it. I mean, you've got to cast a really wide net, and you've got to reach a lot of people, and those people have to like it, and those people have to tell their friends, and their friends have to like it, and spread and build this chain, and that's where the legwork comes in.
Because you're also a publisher. Not only are you self-publishing, so it's like with photography. I did a lot of commercial photography a lot. I did out on the side for a while. And I believe that, looking at photography, the most successful photographers, they don't necessarily aren't the best photographers. It was the marketing that was key. Being successful really isn't necessarily being good about what you do. It's all these other things. Are you good at your finances? Are you able to keep your books straight? Are you able to market?
Do you have a business plan? Yeah. If you're gonna, at what point do you think the listeners of the podcast have realized that we are no longer talking about role-playing game fiction?
It's okay.
We've been going now, so I know we can't go much longer anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't have to tie back. It's truly RPG ramblings. And so even with the one we were
we stayed on public for like 45 minutes though. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think we stayed on topic, man, without rambling too much for a good, 3/4 of the broadcast,
Well, the Trevor Stamper, I'm dropping his episode Saturday, talking about whale poop.
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize that whale poop was such a valuable commodity.
Neither did I. What are you talking about?
What? I guess it's a rare substance, and if you find it, it's used in the perfume industry. And there's people that go around looking for whale poop.
Well, I'm going to tune in, my friend, because I want to know more. I want to know more. There's a story here.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying there's just a lot of interesting things out there. So we didn't stay on top. I mean, there is no topic. The topic really was it's ramblings with Adam Kovac.
Sounds good. I look forward to re-listening to all this. Or maybe I don't. But
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've had a good time chatting with you. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, anytime, Adam. And it's kind of interesting hearing all the angles and I think what you're doing is you are doing something that's very, I don't want to say unique because that's not true, but you're definitely doing something that's on the edge of our hobby that I think there is opportunities there. And I think the experiences that you have are both entertaining and they're also enlightening because you are a published author. You got the Surge, and also, from my understanding,
wherever fine books are sold.
I've also was told you're looking for some wanting to turn it into a graphic novel. Is that the case?
Oh, I would love that. I mean, who wouldn't? It's like having your book made into a movie. Yeah, absolutely.
But the problem is that I think the artist.
It's not going to happen.
It's not because I find art versus we get paid for art, we get paid for words.
That would be a Kickstarter project. If it was ever, if an artist ever said, "Hey, I would love to turn Surge into a graphic novel," that would have to be a Kickstarter.
Yes,
and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I was
make it happen.
I was also thinking too, even with the Traveler novels that ever it came about, it's like, it's like, do you still have you have a lot of opportunities if this works out? You know what I mean?
I think so. I mean, like I said, a lot of it I don't have the answers to, and I'm ballparking and kind of imagining things. But yeah, there's angles. It's in the journalism business, we would say it's a project that has legs. The story has legs. There's room to grow.
There is, and I think, but I'm not going to ask for any details. But so you submitted something that was a year ago initially.
Oh, the Traveler piece?
Yeah.
No, I started working on it a year ago. It's in the early days of being queried.
But I think because you said, hey, this isn't really working out. I'm thinking about tripling the length, filing off the serial numbers, and
yeah. No, I had that thought. That's what I would do if I couldn't sell it as publish it as a Traveler story.
But I think the thing too is you're like, hey, maybe I was if I recall correctly, you said something like, hey, maybe things are changing. I maybe spoke too soon.
Right.
Because go ahead.
Oh, I think it was like, oh, you're talking about on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So so I was like, I had submitted it probably the Traveler story probably 1 or 2 months ago. and I never got an acknowledgement that anyone had actually received it. I was like, this thing either was deleted right away or it went right to spam. So I think I tweeted, I was like, well, I haven't heard anything back, and I'll go to plan B if I have to, which is to take out all the role-playing game material and just rework it and expand it as original science fiction. And the very next day, I get a ping saying, hey, we got it. Be patient. We haven't read it yet, but we'll get to it. I was like, oh, and perhaps I forgot that the gears of publishing work very, very slowly.
Well, it's like HR. You go to apply for a job and you keep waiting by the phone.
Right.
You don't hear the call, but it's like, you don't know. The people could have been on vacation. They could have a lot of stuff going on.
Serge was in the hopper for over 12 months at this publishing house. And my agent and I, we had written it off. We had completely like, okay, well, they're just not responding to us. That's fine, And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, an offer came. They're like, oh, hey, it's sorry it took so long to get back to you. We'd love to publish this book. We'd like to acquire it. You gotta, even I knowing this, and even I still need to remind myself that, like I said, the gears of publishing, they move very, very, they either move like super fast or very slow. And there's really not often in between, it seems. Hey, publishing, man, if they get a product, okay, say you're like an ex NBA star and you write a book, okay, and lands in a publishing house, they can run the nuclear football and make this they can ram this thing through in 6 months if they need to. Other times it might sit and just languish in someone's desk until they get to it.
So would you consider, because I guess when you're going to them, the IP, you're saying that they would do all the publishing. Have you thought about reversing it, saying I want to publish this? What are the fees to license it?
Well, then I would become being my own publishing house. Then I would be, and then basically as a self-published author.
Yeah.
And that's not a place I really want to go. Just professionally. I've thought about that and I've looked into it. And I know people who have, and their stuff is really good too. But
right.
But like personally, I just don't want to do self-publishing. I just don't. I get
it. Right.
As hard of a slog that traditional publishing is, I just do not want to go there as my own shop.
Well, good luck with that. I really hope to see that in print.
Yeah, hey man, I will keep you updated. And again, I mean, it was fantastic meeting you and being on the is it a show? Is it a podcast? What do we call it? What are the kids calling it these days?
Yeah, it's a podcast.
I hope everybody who listened and tunes in, enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a unique perspective, and that's kind of what I like. Is just I see people that are doing interesting things. It's just like, I want to talk to this person. That's the only reason the main reason I started this is just like, you know what? There's things I'm not hearing on other podcasts, and I just kind of like to know more. So it's an excuse to meet people too. So anyway, thanks for joining me, Adam. I really
absolutely.
appreciate it.
It was great. It was great.
All right. Till next time.
Adios. Bye.